Hello everyone, welcome to day 3 of our HP Quickstart training class. This is day 3 of 5. My name is Rhett Scott with hpCommerce Software. Today's topic will be working with vendors, purchasing, purchase advice, and automated reordering. Our next topic is to talk about receiving. So we have created a purchase order, we've marked it as processed, and by some method we've sent it off to our supplier, either by calling it in or by emailing it or by faxing it. Hopefully your suppliers will accept emailed purchase orders. Because of the integrated email system in HP, it's very simple to email that purchase order directly out to your supplier just by using the email tools that are in HP. The next topic I want to talk about is receiving. To go back to our strategy, we have a PO based upon a review of reports that we'll talk about later. We've processed it, sent it off to our supplier, and now we're going to receive it. In the interim, there could be some housekeeping chores that we could do in the way of printing out labels in advance, for instance, for the PO, or prompting the supplier with a PO confirmation to get an updated status on our purchase order that we've submitted. We talked about purchase order status. So not only when you're looking at open POs through the PO creation form, but also when you are on the receiving form, we will see that the order status shows there. It's very important to mark an item, a PO, as being processed. It will not appear in the receiving system until you have marked it as processed. Let's take a look at the process of receiving a PO. Hop back over to HP. And then to receive a PO, you go into C, receive a purchase order. If you have a lot of purchase orders, you can use the search tools to locate the purchase order that you're interested in. You can search by vendor or status or ship to. Once you find the purchase order that you're interested in receiving, you can just double click on it to open it, and that will go into the receiving screen. This receiving screen has a dashboard down at the bottom, and there's a few tips here to make receiving a purchase order as quick as possible. The first tip is if you have received everything in full, then you can use F1, take all parts received. Let's go ahead and select that. And you'll see that in the Now column, it will indicate the same total as the ordered. You'll also notice that there is a received column here. This will show you the total that's been received up to this point. So for the first item, let's say that you had previously received against this PO a total of 3. That means there were 2 outstanding. When you click on the Tag All Parts Received, then in the Now column, it would have just put 2, which would be the quantity ordered of 5 less the quantity received of 3, and so you're now saying that you've received the final amount of 2. If it's a long PO, you can also use F6, Hide Fully Received Items. So if you're receiving a purchase order multiple times by pulling it back up as your vendor fulfills it, and you want to get the clutter out of the way, you can press F6, Hide Fully Received Items, and that will remove from the screen any items that are showing as fully received. And then the last dashboard item I want to point out is the ability to hop right over into part number maintenance right when you're receiving a PO. For many customers, this is the absolute best time to do maintenance on an item. You can hop over into part number maintenance, and you can make any adjustments that you need to right while you're thinking about it. Pressing Escape will return you back to the receiving screen. It's very important when you're receiving a PO that if you're receiving it against an invoice and not a bill of lading, so that you have cost information available, that you update your cost. You can adjust any of the cost information, and you can also go in and adjust the quantities received. One of the ways to use the Tag All Items Received is just to speed up the receiving of a partially received purchase order. Let's say you have a purchase order that has 25 items on it, and you received all of them in full but 2. It's going to be a lot faster to select the tag All Parts Received and then go back and just adjust the 2 items that you did not receive in full. In this case, I'm going to say that we did not receive the jack dirt wing because they were looking and waiting for me to approve the change in cost. I've updated the cost on the item, and I'm going to contact them and tell them to go ahead and ship that. Once you've specified every item that you've received and you've made any kind of adjustments, you can then accept receipts. Once you've determined everything that you've received, you have your cost updated, you have the quantities you're receiving now, you can go in and accept the receipts by pressing F4. You'll be prompted. You can select yes, and then you can indicate either the bill of lading number or the invoice number that you're receiving against. And this will show up in purchase history under part number maintenance. You're then prompted for a series of items, one being to print a receiving report. We'll go ahead and print out the receiving report. You're prompted on whether or not you want to show cost on the receiving report, and then it will show you the items that you have received. So in this case, the item that we did not receive any of is not showing on the report. This is just the items that we've received. Down at the bottom of this report, it shows a breakout of what's been received. It shows the number of pieces in total that have been received, and will show the inventory status, or the purchase order status rather, and it's indicating this PO was still open because we have the jack wing that has not been received in full. You can also print out labels at this time. So if you have products that come in that are not labeled and you're using barcode scanning and barcodes in the system, then you're given an opportunity to print out the labels right now. Maybe the items are labeled, but you like to use your own labels. You can go ahead and select yes to print out labels. You are prompted for if you want to print a barcode on the label. You're prompted for the label format and where you want to print them. In this case, I have my printing set up so that I'm completely bypassing the print preview screen, and so it's just printing directly to my label printer now, and they just all chucked out of my label printer. So those are some settings that we'll take a look at in our 5th day of class where you can fine-tune label printing. Once we've done those steps, we're taken back to our purchase order screen, and we can see that we've partially received this order now. Say it's several days later and our jack wing on the order has been fulfilled. We can open that PO back up. We can hide fully received items. It shows just the item that we haven't received. We can go ahead and tag all parts received. Go ahead and adjust our final cost, accept receipts, indicate our new bill of lading or invoice number, and then we're going to be prompted for a series of confirmations. Because we've changed the cost on the item, the system wants to know if we want to automatically make some adjustments in the system. And we have things configured for it to prompt us for this. It's saying that the cost is greater than our current base cost, and it wants to know if we want to update that information. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And it also wants to know, since the cost has changed for base cost, whether or not we want to recalculate our selling prices. I'm going to say no. And then it will ask me the same question for true cost. It's seen that the true cost has changed, and it wants to know if I want to update that information. I'll say yes. And then an advanced topic in the system that I encourage you to explore: if you purchase items from multiple suppliers, then you can turn on and use the vendor cost system in HP. Just as a high-level item, the vendor cost system allows you to track and indicate costs that you pay to individual suppliers for an item that you may purchase from multiple suppliers. You can indicate the cost that you pay to them, and you can indicate what they call it in terms of a product line code and part number. but that is an advanced topic, and I just want to make you aware that this feature exists. Now it sees that all of the items on the PO have been received, and we're going to be prompted for whether or not we want to close out the PO. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and it wants to know if I want to print out a receiving report. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and whether or not we want to print cost, and we have our new receiving report that just shows our Jack Dirtwing. We're prompted to print labels, and now that purchase order that we created today is no longer showing on our order listing. We have marked it as processed, and it is done.